Hey, Brian, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Brian Latimer. I am a professor, part-time satirist, a little bit of an author, you could say. I try anyway. Um, and my regular day job is basically corrupting young minds through public speaking and advocating, their ideas. But I always like to point out the absurdities of a lot of things myself when I'm able to do that, and that's what I like to do in my writing. But we will probably get more into that as we have our conversation today.
Amazing. I would love if you could tell us what your book's about.
Okay, so this first book, Remus College, is the first in what will probably be planned out right now 4 books. The series circles around a lot of experiences that I've had, as well as my colleagues in higher learning. We all have our PhDs, and I'm I'm pretty sure you've had your experiences with college professors and whatnot, and you probably have your own perspectives. But this is like what a lot of the professors have to deal with away from the classroom. A lot of it deals with because you would think um, here you have individuals who are learned, supposedly. You spend 10 years in college, you might think we have something going on in our head that's productive, but a couple of us not so much. And so I am amazed in the time that I've been a college professor, uh, just how some of us are a little off kilter, to put it nicely. And so a lot of those experiences I talk about in these books, and I basically take all of these experiences and I crunch them down into this hypothetical place called Remus College, where all these stories, which are true, uh, but they're all sort of set in this one location where it just seems like there's no way this place could be actually functioning like this. But there are places that do operate like this. And so like the colleagues that I've shared stories with, their experiences, my experiences, it's like it's amazing what goes on. And so yes, it's set in an academic setting, but it it deals more or less with uh just toxic work cultures. I'm fortunate right now that mine isn't. I mean, everyone's going to have their quirks and whatnot, but um, there have been places that I've been as my friends as well that I'm like, I don't know how you do it. And I would be like amazed. Like people would be amazed at like what goes on like with college professors, when they're not in front of you in the classroom because you probably had your own thoughts of some of yours. And so, just imagine them with a whole bunch of other PhDs in the same room and just see what kind of wackadoo stuff you get. And so it's just funny that way. And like, it's like the madness that comes out. But, when you never leave the ivory tower, it's amazing. Like the, the thought process that goes on with some people.
Love that. What inspired you to write your book?
So, it's kind of funny. One of my friends, we were having a Zoom meeting. Uh, Old cohort and I, we were just swapping stories during COVID and like what's going on at your institution, what's going on at your institution. And one of them threw out the line, if somebody wrote this stuff, no one believe it. And it was like, okay, I'll do it. And so I just took that and I started collecting like some of their stories and my experience and started building up like an idea of how this was going to go. Like each book, the way it's planned out, each book is 2 years because there's just so much that happens uh, with uh, with people, and so it starts off about mid 2010s and it's gonna go up through like the close to present day. Like I'm working on book 2 right now, and I'm just about at the point where COVID becomes a thing. And I don't know, because you're up in Grand Forks, I don't know how University of North Dakota handled it, but a lot of uh, like the institution I was at the time, and a lot of my old cohorts institutions didn't really handle it the best. It was just like everyone's just throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping something sticks. And it just amazed me like what people thought would be a good idea. And it's like we're supposedly smart. And it's just like what what was your train of thought when you to do this? Like a good one was um the school I was at wanted to do these. They look like army grade iPads, and the whole idea was they were going to scan you as you walked in the door and take your body temperature. Okay, well, there's a certain problem there. One, this is in the South, and the South is warm all the time. You're going to come in to any place, and you're definitely going to be warmer than 98.6. So, what are you thinking there? Second, they didn't really. There were no passwords on it, and one of the students got the brilliant idea and, and just started messing with it and just put a YouTube playlist on. So Beyonce was jumping around on the screen the entire time. And I'm like, this is great. I'm glad to see our COVID money is going to good causes like Beyonce on our walls.
When you were writing your book, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
So it was primarily for, yes, it's supposed to be pointed at academics, but it's pretty much anybody that's ever been in a, with coworkers. Everybody has that story of like that one coworker who has like just drives them nuts, drives them up a wall, or they always constantly cause drama, or um, just like this one person who's just like they're so narcissistic and everything is about them. And it's like, where do you get this train of thought? Like, why do you think that, everything you do is so great? I barely see you do anything. So what's with all this bragging? Because we all have those people. And so yes, it's set in academia, but it shines a light on, the college is not immune to this either. And like these types of people that we deal with in our daily lives as coworkers, it's universal, no matter where you are.
How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
So, I've been writing. Well, grad school started that because I had no choice. And you have to write seminar papers all the time. And I really wasn't a prolific writer back then, but I had no choice because you have to write 25 pages per class. So you're writing about 100 pages per semester anyway. So uh, when I decided to try a novel, it was like, oh, I don't have to worry about backing up everything with some citation. Oh, this is going to be a breeze. And I ended up plowing through. Uh, the first book ended up being like 160 some odd pages, I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. Um, and I mean, I tore through that in just sparingly. I wasn't even like constantly doing it or having a routine or anything. I think I churned that out in 6 months. Uh, and I had my friend who loves to do uh, proof editing and whatnot. I don't those kind of people I worry about. Like if you're that kind of into the details, I'm a little scared. But uh, had no problem. Ripped through it. Asked me a couple questions. Like, you want to clarify this? I'm like, yeah, sure. That's actually funnier. Yeah, do that. Uh, but yeah, it was like 6 months to do the whole thing. And I
Love
wasn't
that.
really all that. Yeah, I didn't have any kind of routine or anything.
Okay. Um, so this yours might be a little bit different then, but what is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
So the way I do writing in any way, shape, or form, whether it's for research or for this thing, I have this clock that I use. I have found, and I got it from a book. It was like how to. I think the book was called "How to Write a Research Journal Article in 12 Weeks," because I really want to start churning things out. And I got 10 pages in, and on page 10, it said, just set yourself an appointed time, however long you think it'll work for you, and just do it. Don't worry about anything else. Instead of like trying to make yourself this whole cozy place, just set yourself a time. And through experimentation, it turned out to be like 22 and a half minutes. Like I just set a timer for 22 and a half minutes and I just go, because by the 22-minute mark, like you get diminishing returns, especially when you do research writing. And it's just like, all right, I'm about done here. And then, take a break. And if I still have time to, fit in another one, I'll do it. That's generally how it goes. But I have found that, and it's not just been for the writing, it's been for a lot of things, doing like my exercise routines and whatnot. Like this, for whatever reason, 22 and a half minutes for me is like perfect. I don't know why, but it just is. So I can cram in a lot of things in my day.
Amazing. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
So, and I try to get my students to understand this as well. Um, you have to have that thing that helps you stay on task. And for me, it's always been music. Um, I have an iPod because I'm that old, because nobody uses iPods anymore. But I have an iPod that just constantly loops music because that's all I have on it. Because I'm just, again, that old that I only use an iPod for music. No apps, just music. And I think I have like 3 weeks worth of music on it that could just go without, repeating. So I just hit shuffle and it just go. So whatever. And I have an eclectic taste in music. So, 1 minute I'm listening to Kenny Rogers, next minute I'm listening to Foreigner, and next minute I'm listening to The Weeknd. It's like all over the place.
Amazing. What is your favorite writing snack and drink?
So I shouldn't do it, but I do anyway. Soda is still a thing. I wish I had beaten that addiction a long time ago, but I can't. Usually it'll either be a Pepsi or Mountain Dew. Food wise, I've recently discovered goldfish pretzels, pretzel goldfish. Like I like pretzels to begin with, but these things are like, what genius manufactured this? This is beautiful. And I've fallen in love with those, which sounds weird that I've fallen in love with a pretzel, but it is what it is.
Love it. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
So, I have to read a lot of academic journals like at work. But because I have to keep on top of my the literature of the stuff that I research. But for pleasure, when I get the chance, and it's just, this is not going to sound pleasurable at all. Um, I'm currently reading The Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt. My wife got me that, because you can tell I'm just all charisma here. And right before that, I had finished. Oh, I can't remember. It was Ryan Holiday. He's a Stoic writer, and I thoroughly enjoy his work. Stoicism is one of those things that I kind of already had, but I didn't know how to name to it. And when I discovered his stuff and I started reading it, I was like, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I'm glad someone put a label on it so I don't feel so weird. I read all sorts of stuff. Like I got a couple in my queue right now. Um, oh crud, what did I just get? I think it was called. It's something about big tech bros in Silicon Valley like 10 years ago. Oh, I can see the cover right now. It's a guy who has a horse head on his face as he's typing. Oh, it's gonna drive me nuts. But it basically his experience of going into a startup company and just how they kind of run themselves like a frat, and he comes from a different environment where that sort of thing isn't happening, and so how he's trying to adjust to that insane work environment. Because I figured, I'm writing this stuff. I might as well see if somebody else recommended. You should probably look at that. And I was like, all right. So I want to see how if I can pick up anything from that because I've always found that um, you're gonna find inspiration from all sorts of places in your styles and whatnot. And like the way I write, at least like with this book, uh, I my favorite comedian of all time is Lewis Black, and I that's kind of why I have the name the Angry PhD, because I get angry about things and I will kind of unload about it. And so, like, when I find things to be that are absurd, that's what I do. I don't get angry at people. People do their thing. I get angry at their actions because that's the thing that it's just like how did you get here? What brought you to this logical conclusion? And so I always like to, poke fun at that stuff because it never ceases to amaze me, like the things that I've experienced and my friends have experienced, in our academic journeys.
Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Not really. Um, I, well, because I was forced to write in grad school, so I really didn't have a particular um, jumping point from I want to write like this person. Uh, I mean, I did. There were some continental philosophers that I really enjoyed, like the guys from the Frankfurt School from the 1930s and Walter Benjamin. But I mean, that's dry academic stuff. That's not. But it was like I want to do mind blowing stuff like that. But I also have this thing about making fun of things. Um, because the absurdity of a lot of things that happen. Like one of the things I do with my students, I'm a big fan of bad movies. So once a month we will watch a horrible movie, and I'll point out like all these things that I tell you about in terms of how to properly film. This is what happens when they don't, when the decision's made not to follow those things and whatever other limitations you have, you end up with Troll 2 or The Room or Manos the Hands of Fate. And it's like Manos the Hands of Fate is a horrible film, but it was directed by a guy who sold fertilizer in El Paso, Texas in 1969. What were you expecting? And so, his thought process of putting his idea out there for people to see, like that is always like, wow, like you had a dream and you did it, but like your decisions are, ooh, they're special.
What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Oh, so growing up, so like I learned to read, and this is really going to tell you my age, with Peter Pan storytime books. Um, Star Wars was big back then, so I had all of those, and that's how I learned to read. Um, like I could say the whole thing verbatim, but uh, even without the record playing, yeah, let's really date ourselves here. And my parents were like, "What's that word? What's that word?" And I couldn't do it. And then they pointed out, "Well, this is what it is." And so I started reading that way. Um, and you know, high school, I really wasn't much of a reader. Um, Although one book stuck with me in eighth grade, and it's still my favorite book, and it's Fahrenheit 451, because I am one of those people that I have this problem with people who have a issue with free speech, You should be able to use your platform, and whatever you think should be said, I have no problem with, but you must be cognizant of the repercussions. Yes, you can say these things, but the court of public opinion will judge you, and you best be ready to handle that. So, like I tell my students this all the time. I really don't care what outlandish thoughts you have, as long as you can construct a solid argument behind it. I'm cool with it, because sharing ideas, no matter how far out in left field they can be, I mean, if you do it right, it can be constructive.
On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors that if they come out with something, you automatically grab it?
Lewis Black, obviously. Still a big fan of George Carlin. A lot of the stuff that I prefer to read, that's like my go-to, will always be comedians, because in a weird way, I kind of fancy myself as one, although a terrible one, because I do it daily, badly, cracking horrible jokes in front of my students. And the thing about comedians is they're observing the world, and they through through their wit can deconstruct some of this madness that we're living in. Uh, that's always one of the things that I've admired about them. It's like you can all these complex situations, and here's somebody over here looking at it and is like, yeah, but isn't it really this? And then makes it funny. And like I'm always entranced by that, because people are really too serious as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, it's not as bad as like when I was a teenager in the 90s, and I was a skater, and I got used to a lot of people just coming up and screaming at me, because everyone had high blood pressure back then. Uh, but nowadays, like, no one gets up in your face and yells at you. They do it via social media, and it's like, would you legitimately do that to me now, like to my face? Would you say that? Um, and I worry about that, because like everybody wants to hang out in their tribes now and not really engage anymore. And that's what I've always liked about the comedians, because they can break that stuff down, and find commonalities within whatever the situation is.
What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
So I think what I would say to them is, what do you like? I mean, this is what I tell my students when it comes to uh, any of my writing classes and such. It's like, what are you passionate about? Like, what do you want to know about? Like, I have this horrible problem called curiosity, and I want to know how things work. Like, I've asked my students in class, do you know how the door works? Like, do you know what happens like when you turn the knob? Like, do you know all those parts in there? Like, it's kind of complicated. And if you have a passion about anything, um, you know, follow that first, because if you're passionate about something and you want to know something at a granular level, cool, pursue that, do that. But along the way, if one of those people that you're reading mentions this other thing, it's like, I wouldn't mind learning more about that. Then find out about that. You just being curious and being passionate about what you want to learn, because that's the thing that drives me nuts. Like, a lot of people just want to shortcut things and not know, and I'm like, I don't understand how you don't want to know things. Like, are you afraid it's going to like rattle a cage, that you're now like, oh, my world is turned upside down? It's like, well, you should, in certain aspects, expand beyond what you've been comfortable with. I don't know. I left my hometown in 18 and never really went back. So, because I had curiosity. So,
On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
same thing. What are you passionate about? What do you think? What do you think is like something that's important? What story do you want to share? Everybody's got good stuff, whatever that stuff may be, and you gotta. It's gonna be. It might be hard for you at first to find your voice when you write, but if you just plod at it, you don't have to be like hard charging all the time. Like you know, I got to put in my hour of writing today. It's like, are you feeling it right now? Then go for it. If not, maybe wait a minute. But just just persist. It's one of those things where it because it's like I tell my students when they do any writing assignment of mine, you're looking at the whole room when I tell you to clean the room, and you're not looking at it in parts. Like if you want to have a clean room, this is what you got to do. Day one, clean underneath the bed. Day two, clean that corner that's got the pizza boxes. Day three, let's take care of the closet. And a couple days later, the room is clean. But if you just look at that big project of like, this is what I need to do, then you're just going to be overwhelmed by that instead of looking at the smaller piece. Like, okay, today I want to get this many paragraphs done, or I want to finish up this chapter, or whatever. So, taking it in those bite sized chunks is way better than staring at this homunculus that is just overwhelming you.
What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Uh, ooh, that I am, uh, that I still skate. Um, I am in my mid 40s and I still go to skate parks and I still grind ledges and rails. I've got kids who are half my age looking at this old man like, what are you doing? It's like, I can't be like everybody else who's my age because most of them aren't doing anything. They're wiped out from their work week. And if anything, if they're at home, they might be, doing a home project or whatever obligation they got. I have this time where I can go out and still act like I'm 17. And I'm going to do that because there's going to be a day when I can't. It'll be when I'm 95. But until then, I'm going to keep on doing this. Not have to wear a whole lot more uh, body armor because if I fall, it's not a pretty sight. Next morning, I'm gonna, I don't even want to talk about that. Like busted hips and all that. It's never a good time.
Amazing. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
Um, so if you're curious about writing, keep writing. Just plot at it. You don't have to write anything crazy. Just start off with little things. I don't know, start a Reddit account or something like that and share just different things. Anything can be like a writing prompt for you that, can kind of encourage that. That would be the first thing I would say. To my fellow professors who are always out there trying to uh, get more lines on their CV with publications, keep on plugging away, even though, we don't get paid for that. Uh, it is something nice to get out there because that work will outlast us. It'll be sitting there somewhere in the Library of Congress, which that is still weird to me that I have works that are sitting in there in the Library of Congress. Um, and you just keep plugging away. Don't get discouraged. Yeah, you can be upset at things, but never walk away from it.
Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
So the best place to find my book is on Amazon. It is Remus College by Brian S. Latimer. Signed copies, I could possibly do that. I've never done that online. I mean, I've had people ask me to sign a copy for them, and I've done that. Um, but other places that you can find me. Um, so the Angry PhD on Facebook. I also have the same thing on Instagram, except it's Angry PhD BSL. And I also have a Reddit because I've discovered that most professors do not have a sense of humor. So I created something called Professor Memes, where I just have just random memes about anything professor-ish there and stuff like that. Um, is there anything else? I don't no, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, you can find the book on Amazon, and I have those spaces. And if you want to ask me questions and stuff like that, I'm always open for that. I have no problem handing out advice. I mean, that's pretty much what I do in my daily anyway with students. So yeah,
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. And again, thank you so, so much.
thank you very much.